right off the top, the topic is, has pain caused you to reject God? How about it? If you know somebody who's rejecting God, who's had some painful episode in his life or her life, and it's just caused them to get offside with God, tell them to call. Call them up and tell them to call. Tell them to watch the program. So I want to turn it over to my good friend, Pastor Mark Griffin this morning, that he is going to tell us from the Bible exactly what God has to say about pain and when we face it, and how he can help instead of us just rejecting him. So Pastor Mark, welcome to At the Cross Live again.
Thank you, Corval. It's always great to be with you.
Yeah, and I know you have some words of wisdom from the throne room of heaven. So let's have it.
Sure. Has pain caused you to reject God? Can we be honest about this topic? We like to think that we're open-minded, but perhaps we've closed and nailed some doors shut because we've judged God. We figured maybe he doesn't care, maybe God's mean or angry. As you think about God, have you inadvertently believed lies about him? Everybody wants truth. In relationships, in life, no one wants to be lied to be misled. People value honesty in relationships. Have you heard it said, boy, I wish people would be more deceitful with me. I wish people would be less honest and more flattering and patronizing. Of course not. No one has said this, ever. Nobody wants to be lied to or deceived. We all want people that will shoot straight with us. However, when it comes to some of the most important areas of our life, especially what will happen to us after we die, the Bible, ultimate eternal truth, many of us say that we're open-minded thinkers, but are we? Really? Or have you allowed hurt or rejection or loneliness to alienate you from God? Have you believed the bad press about the church, about God? Many people are throwing the baby out with the bathwater, missing the forest for the trees, or have totally misunderstood God. The truth is, we can easily build up walls with God because we've been hurt. Perhaps you had a bad experience with religion as a kid, lost interest in church, Sunday school, or youth group. Maybe you met some sketchy Christians along the way, or you've been neglected somehow. Or maybe you lost a family member or a friend or a loved one, or perhaps your prayer wasn't answered. Perhaps you've been assaulted, wounded, or taken advantage of in some way, and we perceive that God allowed it. How could we turn to such a God? Are you still carrying that old baggage? Is some of that old hurt in your life keeping you away from God, really? Perhaps your disappointment with God or your anger with God has led you to an emptiness that's never been resolved. As we explore tonight's question, has pain caused you to reject God? We'll follow a very simple outline. We'll consider 4 R's. First of all, what you read. Secondly, what you research. Thirdly, your relationships. And then fourthly, we'll briefly discuss reality. First of all, let's consider what you read. Has pain caused you to reject God? What have you read so that you would stop rejecting God? Like seriously, if you're really open-minded, Have you considered actually reading the Bible? I think a lot of folks are very critical of Christianity, critical of the church, but they've never really explored the ultimate source document. They've never researched the Bible for themselves. Listen to this beautiful verse. It says in Psalm 34:18, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." Isn't that a wonderful encouragement? It's very comforting when you read it in a modern English version like that we can easily understand. However, some people make no attempt to understand the Bible, have never made an attempt to get a version of the Bible that they actually understand. Perhaps you have a version of the Bible that reads that same verse more like this. Listen to it from the King James. "The Lord is nigh unto them that are of a broken heart, and saveth such as be of a contrite spirit." It's still a beautiful verse, but what does that mean? Saveth such as be of a contrite spirit. Again, if you don't understand a more archaic English, and that's all you have in terms of a Bible, do you see what I'm getting at here? Have you really dug into the faith if you've made no attempt to actually understand God? Or perhaps you'd rather keep distance between you and God because you've been hurt, or disappointed, or lonely. It's sometimes easier to hide behind a crutch of, "I don't understand the Bible." Listen to this great quote. "Two prisoners whose cells adjoin communicate with each other by knocking on the wall. The wall is the thing which separates them, but is also their means of communication. It's the same with us and God. Every separation is a link." Wow. Have you ever listened to God? Have you ever read the Bible for yourself? Have you read the important parts of Scripture? Do you know what the most important parts of Scripture are? Have you even read John's Gospel, a simple summation of the message of Scripture in one short book? I'm reminded of the story of this man named Jan. He emigrated from Slovakia in the early 1920s. Getting off the boat in Montreal, as he walked down the gangplank, somebody handed him a Gospel of John, just a short little book from the Bible. And it was labeled in the Slovak language, "Good News from a Man Named John," in Slovak. And Jan was so impressed with this because that was his name, John. And as he rode the train from Montreal out to Saskatchewan, where he was employed, he read through the entire Gospel of John. Again, he'd been raised in the church, but had never actually read the Bible for himself. And reading the Gospel of John on that train ride, he read these words, "These things are written that you might believe, and that by believing on him you can have everlasting life." And with no one to talk to him, no one to pray with him, John just exclaimed on the train, "I believe." And right there on the train, just reading the simple story of Jesus from the book of John, this man, John, gave his heart to Jesus. John went on to follow Christ all of his days. He became a minister here in Hamilton, Ontario, where for years he served as the pastor of the Full Gospel All Slavic Church, downtown Hamilton. That story is very significant to me because that man, Jan Gresko, was my grandfather. And he served his life just because somebody had the wisdom to hand him the Gospel of John. It changed his life. I want to encourage you, if you've never explored the Bible for yourself, to read the Gospel of John. So we've stretched the boundaries a bit with number 1, what you read. Now let's talk about number 2, what you research. These questions you have about God, have you ever Googled them? Have you ever done an internet search for why didn't God answer my prayer? Have you ever looked at any books or articles? I'm thinking of the book, The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. It's a book that explores the perspective of an investigative journalist researching Christ from the fields of science, philosophy, and history. Are you open to exploring a book like that? Or maybe you've closed a door to exploring the things of God because of disappointment or hurt. Let me encourage you to do some research. If you were having some major surgery done, or a big event in your life like buying a house or a car, wouldn't you do a little research before making a big life decision? And yet when it comes to eternity, a lot of folks make eternal decisions without even thinking about it, basing their direction or their decision on old pain and disappointment without reconsidering or researching it at all. I implore you tonight to research your questions. It could change your life. So we've considered number 1, what you read, number 2, what you might research. Now let's consider number 3, relationships. Have you ever talked to a genuine person of the Christian faith? Oh, now when I say genuine, I mean not someone who's filled with judgment, not a legalist, not someone bound up by rules and regulations, not someone who's living a double life, just putting on a Sunday show. But if you talk to a genuine, joyful Christian whose life is filled with peace and love, I got to be honest with you. There's some folks who call themselves Christians, but to be honest with you, they're a poor reflection of Christianity. They might be mean. They could be angry or bitter about something. And James, the brother of Jesus, said, you know what? It shouldn't be like that. You shouldn't have both sweet water and bitter water flowing out of the same spring. Please don't let their pain become yours. Please don't reject the faith or let others prevent you from exploring the faith. I mean, just because you've met some Christian people who are struggling, their struggle shouldn't be imposed upon you. I'd encourage you to get into relationship with some joyful, listening, caring, loving Christians. You know what? There are thousands of them out there. And as we consider this question, has pain caused you to reject God? Let me just recap. We've talked about what you read, what you might research, relationships, but lastly, I want to talk to you about reality. Truth is, we've all been hurt. And yes, much of that pain is legitimate. It's very real. But here's my question. Are we going to be stuck in that pain? Can we actually admit that there might be a bigger picture? I'll tell you, pain truly reveals our need for God, the source of all life. You know, in my various holidays that I've taken over the years, I've had the privilege of doing some snorkeling and even some scuba diving. And scuba diving is a fascinating thing, especially as you dive down 30, 40, 50, even 60 feet below the surface. Can I tell you something? Scuba divers need their oxygen tanks. I mean, to swim away from your oxygen tank, that'd just be insane. I mean, who in their right mind would walk away or swim away from the very source of life? Jesus said these words. He said, "I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." To pull away from God, to reject God for whatever reason, even though our hurt may be very real, it's still not the best choice. To pull away from life actually means death. And I'll tell you, in our moments of hurt, it's easy to withdraw. It's easy to reject God. But in those same moments, maybe, just maybe, we can find God. That's actually why Jesus came. Jesus was sent to help the brokenhearted. Hundreds of years before Jesus came to this earth, this verse from the prophet Isaiah foretold it. It said this, "The Spirit of the sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted," wow, "to proclaim freedom for the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners." And when Jesus stood in the temple, he unrolled the scroll of Isaiah to this exact point at Isaiah 61. And Jesus read these same verses about him. That's why he came, to help the brokenhearted. Jesus came to help you. He also said that he didn't come into this world to condemn the world. He didn't come to condemn anybody. He came to help. He came to save. He came to hunt us down, to seek us out, to look for folks that are lost. In reality, if you're looking for Jesus to fix every problem that you have right now, he probably won't. If you're looking for God to be a Santa Claus and fulfill every wish that you have, that's probably not going to happen either. However, I can promise you this. If you open your heart to God, if you allow him to be the leader of your life, if you surrender your heart to him fully, I guarantee you that his peace will invade your heart. His strength will fill you, giving you an ability to change from the inside out. He can help you move on. He can help you forgive. He can take a cold heart of stone and make it tender again. He promised he would do that through the prophet Jeremiah. He promised. So, friends, if pain and hurt have caused you to reject God, I beg you to open your heart and let him heal your soul and transform your heart and start fresh tonight. Why not? Aren't you tired of feeling hurt, feeling alone, feeling rejected and in pain, I just want to encourage you to surrender your life to God right now. Call us. We'd love to talk and pray with you. I hope we can encourage you tonight. Bless you, and thank you for hearing my heart.